Welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I'm your host tonight, and I have two Infinity Bros with me. Number one, it is the number one Infinity Bro in your hearts. It's Mark Jones.
Me? I'm the number one in the hearts.
That's what I've heard. I've heard whispers from people.
I'm back,
say
baby.
That Mark Jones is the best Infinity Bro, so...
That's schizophrenia, and you should get it checked out.
You're probably right. And that other Infinity Bro that just accused me of being schizophrenic is Jarret Curtis.
Hi, I'm not Robbie.
Thank God.
I mean, in all fairness, Jarret could be the voice in all of our heads, telling us we're
that's what it is.
That's true. I would rather have Jarrett's voice in my head telling me what to do than anybody else's in the Infinity Bros. So
I appreciate that.
I feel like you would guide me better than most of the other guys. Just you wouldn't do things to say things to me on purpose to make me do bad things.
I would just inadvertently lead you into a crippling caffeine addiction at inappropriate times of the evening. But other than that, you're
safe. You basically have that. So
that's very
that's
insightful.
Not that big a deal.
Isaac's like, Jarret won't make me do bad things, but Robbie, Zane, and Mark will.
Robbie, Zane, and Mark, yeah, they're definitely going to be leading me down a bad path. So. Anyways, we have a lot to talk about today. Welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can check out theinfinitybros.com for all of your Infinity Bros needs and all of our links. You can check us out on social media or join our Discord to get in on the Infinity Bros universe. Boys, we have a lot to talk about today. Stuff that I haven't prepared you for is some nerd news that we're going to go over first. But then we're going to do a review of X-Men because we've got our X-pert Jarret on here.
Wow.
See what I did there?
Oh, Lord help me.
Jarret is our X-Men guy on the Infinity Bros, so glad that he was finally able to join us on an episode of the Infinity Bros podcast.
Dude.
To review X-Men 97 with us, which was a phenomenal show. Holy crap. I think that blew everybody's socks off, Lady Gaga style. Correct, Mark?
Yes.
Everybody was really excited for it, but I don't think we were ready for the level of awesomeness that we
I didn't think it was going to go that hard. I was like, it's going to try to mimic the show from the 90s. And then they're like, nah, fam, hold this. I'm
buckle down.
Put 2 pairs of socks on. Buckle up.
Yeah.
Don't get wet.
So hold on to listen to our review on X-Men 97. But first, we're going to talk about some nerd news.
Hey, Zane, I was looking into getting into this Gunpla thing. There's one called the Unicorn Banshee. What the heck is that all about? Actually, Jarret, what you're thinking of is RX-0 Unicorn Gundam 2 Banshee, which is from the Mobile Suit Gundam. Actually, you know what? It's time for nerd news.
All right, boys. There's been some big things happening in nerd news since we last spoke, especially you guys. But I have some nerd news specifically for you. The Boys is coming out on June 13th this year, season 4. And we got confirmation that they are going to be coming back for a 5th season, according to the Hollywood Reporter about a week ago now. So apparently people think that this season is pretty dang good. Mark, what do you think of The Boys, and what do you think of it being renewed for a 5th season, even before the 4th season premieres?
You know, I've kind of come into the camp of, I wish they didn't tell us they had it renewed already. Because then to us, it's like, well, you're not going to kill off certain characters, or I couldn't imagine you would. Because then the next season's going to be kind of trash, in my opinion. But it's Amazon. They know its popularity. They know it's going to bring viewers in. So it's a moneymaker. So I've also heard that the new season's going to be, it's also set up to be some of the most, they're going to have some great stories to insert there and kind of cap off some of the stuff that's been ongoing the last 3 seasons. So I'm all in.
Right. I think they did a really good job of ending season 3 with a bang, but at the same time still having a lot of story to tell. So season 4, is set up to be, and plus with Gen V, which we got last fall, apparently this season of The Boys picks up where Gen V left off, and a lot of those Gen V characters are probably going to become main characters in the season. So I think there's going to be some pretty hardcore storytelling, and our usual The Boys shenanigans with blood and guts and gore and violence everywhere. Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think season 5 is a good sign that this season is good. I don't have any doubts that it's good because every season that they've had so far has one-upped the previous season, which is pretty bonkers when you think about it.
Well, I think also they've been good, like where they're not going to fall into the Marvel syndrome with, you could say oversaturation or too many, different directors with their stories to tell or whatever. Where it's one solid group. Yes, they started incorporating Gen V, but made it so much different, but set in the same world where it doesn't really hasn't overlapped that much yet. That they don't have a competition with other movies with it, where it's just like, here's our 10 episodes, we're going to make it clean, hard, and just make it good. And I think they've just proven that that's a successful formula to produce TV shows like this.
Good news for The Boys fans for sure, and picking up from Gen V where that left off, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
And some people say Gen V's better than the first 3 seasons of The Boys. That's been
Some
said.
people have said that. Yes, you are correct. Are you one of those people? Because you said that very cryptically.
No. My beautiful wife Kelly said that. So,
Oh, okay.
Gotta trust her.
There we go. There it
Yeah.
is. Okay. June 13th, season 4 of The Boys drops. It will be a good one. Next up for nerd news, Jarret, this one is more for you. We got some news about Daredevil, Born Again. That is going to be dropping March 2025.
Oh, wow.
Disney had a presentation probably a week ago now, and they revealed a few different things. They revealed a new logo for Daredevil. They revealed that Ironheart is happening, so that's also cool.
Like its own show? Is it still a show or a movie?
Is it a show or is it a movie?
It's a show.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like they went back and forth on that.
Right, they have. And we still kind of have Armor Wars like floating around in there. There was like the Ironheart and Armor Wars are going to be like combined into one thing. I don't know. They're saying now, this is not included in this nerd news, but the latest I've heard from Armor Wars is that that's supposed to be a movie. Who knows? But Ironheart is supposed to be a series. That one does not have a release date set as of this point, but March 2025 is when we're going to get Daredevil Born Again. 9 episodes. Kind of a bummer because we had heard previously that it was going to be like 18.
Yeah.
What do you think about Daredevil Born Again? Do you think they're going to pretty much pick up where they left off in the Netflix series or kind of forge their own path?
I really hope that they learn from their mistakes and allow sort of the Netflix to bleed in there a little bit. Because we saw with like Echo and a bunch of these other series is like, it's really hard to keep doing the Disney Plus formula the way they've been doing it. I feel like they haven't learned their lesson if we're still only getting 9 episodes, but maybe we could be delightfully surprised and they're actually an hour long or something, but my guess is probably not. I think we're going to get a repeat of the same, line that we've been towing about all the Disney Plus shows so far. And it sucks because like we've had a good established with Charlie Cox as Daredevil and they're going to fumble it. I cannot doubt that they're going to fumble it. And I don't know. It's disappointing, especially now that they've acquired Hulu. It's like you sort of have the go ahead to having a more adult storyline. You're putting the stuff on the same app anyways. Make it Daredevil the way we've seen it before. And I don't understand.
I think that was something that they're experimenting with Echo because Echo released concurrently on Hulu and Disney Plus. So I think they are going to make it pretty MA. Maybe not quite as violent as the Netflix series, but hopefully still in that vein. This is a while ago now, probably like last year, 2023 sometime. They did like basically scrap the whole show and start over. Yeah. This is all speculation and stuff like that. But because what they were saying was this was a different universe, not like the same universe as the Netflix universe. So it was like a completely different show, basically.
That worries me a lot. Yeah.
Which I think would have been a mistake, which is good that they reworked that. But still, the fact that they scrapped everything and basically started over is a little worrisome.
And we've had the SAG-AFTRA strike, and we've had we saw how they treated Kingpin and Echo, and that was atrocious. So I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. I'll watch it. I love Daredevil. Born Again was a phenomenal series. I think we're diehards. We're still going to see it, but
Right.
my expectation is pretty low.
What denomination do you think he Born Again's into?
He's no longer Catholic. He's reformed.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
That'd be a whole new direction for Daredevil.
That's the question to ask. If he's going to be born again to a different denomination, the denomination he picks is very telling of who he'll become.
To be clear, I love the Catholic side, and I feel like in today's climate, people want a separation of church and comic books, which is stupid. But I think the sort of Catholic guilt aspect of Daredevil and the clearly religious iconography of it, the whole character in its core,
It totally makes sense.
it's part of his character.
Right.
You cannot separate him from that. And I think if it just doesn't make sense, I don't think you could remove the Catholicism from Daredevil and still have it be a good series.
So on that point, this is just total.
Yeah.
This is a nerd related item. So for my wedding, I gave all the groomsmen and people like men that were involved, like boutonnieres. I had little Marvel characters in him, and I gave my dad's character was Daredevil because he's a staunch Catholic guy. So
Nice.
I love that. That's
On
amazing.
point. The red hair, yeah, Irish Catholic through and through.
Love that. I think it'll be solid. I don't know how you can really compare to the Netflix series because Netflix series is so stinking good. Like 6 out of 6.
Yeah.
Season 3 of Daredevil on Netflix is maybe one of the best superhero TV shows ever produced. Like it's so good. So I don't know, man. It'll be interesting.
I think they have to. This is my strongest opinion. I think they still have to go with the hyper violence like they did with Netflix.
Right.
Because that's what I think that's what's going to make it so much different in his level of superheroes. He's not a Thor. He's street level. So you got to be super violent to deal with some of the people he's going to be dealing with. So like, that's where I think that if they keep that mold, I think that's what truly is going to separate Daredevil from like the other Disney Plus shows.
And honestly, the tone of Echo was good. Like I think the violent tone that we got in Echo was solid. So if they can match or exceed that, I think they'd be all right. I still have a hard time seeing it live up to Netflix Daredevil. And they have all the OG cast members back too. We got Charlie Cox and I don't have the actors' names on hand, but the guy playing Foggy Nelson and Karen Page are all back.
Deborah Ann
We've
Wall.
heard rumors about John Bernthal coming back as Punisher for Born Again as well. So who knows? But I think it'll still be solid. The question is, how solid is it going to be?
It's hard because like you look at like Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and his stuff is like even he has to deal with severe trauma. I mean, like look at No Way Home was phenomenal, and they actually did that well. You know what I mean? Like you felt it. And you look at Daredevil, and his whole thing is like one of the main stories we know with Karen is like severe drug addiction, and Daredevil has to deal with the new Jed McKay stuff is all about like, who am I when I murder somebody? You know what I mean? Like, and if you don't dig into this like deep, darker side of Daredevil,
What is there?
like you're making such a sanitized version of a very deep and complex character, and it just doesn't work for me.
Right.
And that's going back to what you were saying, where like his Catholic faith is such like rooted in who he is as a person,
Yeah.
and who he is as a superhero,
Right.
that gives him so much human conjecture, if that's a right term, or I'm just expounding on.
No, I'm
but-
with you. I'm
where
with
it's
you.
just like that. That's why it's like, yeah, you really shouldn't take that aspect out of the character because that is so integral. Can't even say the word. Into him as a human being.
Yeah.
So
It's like Batman without the alley, right? If you
Yeah.
have Batman and you never mention Crime Alley, you never deal with the trauma of losing his parents.
and another Catholic superhero.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. I'm with you, Mark.
One other thing that I wanted to mention about this Disney presentation that Mark, I think you probably have special interest in, is Agatha All Along. They finally revealed.
Is that the new title?
That's the new title. They've been playing us the whole time with like 7 different titles of Agatha. Agatha Harkness, Coven of Chaos. What are some of the other ones that they've had? Like all these other ones. And then they finally revealed at the presentation that it is Agatha All Along is the
After
title
they
of the show.
changed the Captain America New World Order movie to something else, Brave New World, I was just like, whatever, bro. You lost me.
Just-
You had me all in on New World Order, and then you changed it. So STFU.
But this one actually is kind of clever and funny. I wonder if they like changed it twice and then they were like, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just change this every once in a while until we actually get to the
all I hope is
final.
the showrunners and people writing this actually read source material, so we're not going to get like, oh, we didn't read any stuff about Scarlet Witch. This is just coincidence that some of this stuff happened.
Yeah, and that's dropping this fall.
Like that's coming. Yeah,
that's
year.
Coming up. Yeah, we're gonna see another Disney Plus show.
Is it for sure we're following the Bob Iger like 3 movies, 2 shows a year? You know,
that's what they said. But I mean, at this point, yeah, I guess this year we only have Deadpool and Wolverine, MCU wise, and then Agatha all along.
Is that an MCU movie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yes, Jared. It's an MCU movie.
It will be by the end of it. I'm assuming this is what's going to happen. They're going to start in different universes. TVA is involved.
That's right. You're right.
And they're going to end up in the MCU at the end of the movie. That's kind of what I've been thinking.
There's going to be some convergence. There's going to be an MCU player that I feel like is going to be more involved in what they're leaning on, but we'll see.
September 18th
Hawkeye
is when Agatha All Along drops. Ooh. So that's actually,
like 2 months before will be the Deadpool drop.
Mm-hmm. And I don't see anywhere how many episodes are in that series. I would assume that's probably a typical miniseries type of thing for them. Because I'll still watch this because I'm a Marvel shill, but I don't think this is going to get a season 2. Like this is going to
who's in this besides Catherine Hahn?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's the thing. There's like no information about it.
I'm going to look that up, but like, do we know if this is going to be a before WandaVision or post WandaVision?
That's a good question.
It says co-stars Joe Locke and Patty Lupon.
Following the events of WandaVision. I don't know
who those people are.
She looks to some unlikely allies to join her on her quest to regain her former powers. So she figures out that the Scarlet Witch. So my guess would be like the Doctor Strange movie. How much time goes by from WandaVision to the ending of that where she like either kills herself or goes to somewhere else? Even though in the MCU books say that she dies there. You know, I'm not taking that as for anything.
Right.
So
no.
Interesting.
But for superheroes, we get that have Wikipedia page Wiccans in it.
Oh, that would make sense, right?
Jennifer Kale, whoever Jennifer Kale is.
Okay. Sounds good. See, like none of this is inspiring.
Yeah,
a real excitement for this series for me. So.
Are we getting both twins, or are we just getting Wiccan?
Hulkling is in this show.
Good. I mean, that makes sense,
right? Yeah, that makes sense.
No, it doesn't say. The other one is Rio Vindel. Or
wait.
Warrior Witch. I went to the Wikipedia page.
Yeah. Hold on. Lock in real quick for me, boys. Do you think we get actual Hulkling, like the Kree Skrull hybrid? Or do we get the weird Wish.com scar that we got at the end of...
That's actually... I was just going to say that after you said that, because that, I feel like, is just a loose end that we're never going to see anything again.
Please never, ever do that again.
What if they did that, though? Like,
oh my gosh.
What if that was actually Hulkling? Not Scar.
It crossed my mind, and I was like, please, God, no.
Oh, that would be wild.
Well, I don't think it is, because it's not played by the same actor. I don't.
Well,
there's like a 5-second shot,
and they've done that so. Like, look at.
I mean, Thanos wasn't played
Cassie
by Brolin right away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
Look at Cassie from Ant-Man and Wasp. They changed her.
True.
Well, she got older.
No, they changed the older actress too from the 2 movies.
I know. I was just
she grew up.
Just pulling a mark.
They went 4 years in the future. She had to get older. She couldn't stay 9.
Last bit of nerd news is for me. Nicolas Cage
treat at the end
to star in Spider-Man Noir live action series at MGM Plus, Amazon Prime Video. This was confirmed by Amazon already, which I'm shocked that this is like.
So like Amazon's like, hey, we want you to make a movie. We're going to take your character. We'll pay you money, but we're making it because we know we're going to make it.
Yes, like this is. I mean, like on Amazon's part, this is brilliant. Like this is gonna do just fine for them.
And I'm sure they're going to be like, we're just going to be in this universe. We're not going to touch any other Spider-Man. We're just doing Spider-Man.
I want it to be so freaking pulpy. Like, I want it to be...
Oh, dude. It better be. Okay. So here, let's breaking this down here.
Yeah.
Number 1 is Nicolas Cage. So
Yeah.
I was jazzed, obviously. Number 2, I was thinking initially when this was rumored to be going around that this was going to be an animated show.
Right.
Like that would make sense because he plays Spider-Man Noir in Into the Spider-Verse. But this is a live action show. The rumors that I've heard about it is that it's going to be like a retired Spider-Man Noir in, whatever it is.
One more mystery to solve.
Yeah.
One more crime.
One more. Like, that sounds awesome, actually. So I'm like 100%. And Nicolas Cage
he's got to list a young guy and an old friend. Let's go, boys.
I hope. Oh my gosh. I hope they give him like a quippy sidekick who just drives him nuts through the whole thing.
Gosh, it's gonna be so great.
Please.
And Affleck Daredevil shows up.
The one thing that I was a little like, Sony still owns this character, so Sony is producing the show. That was the one thing that I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are apparently. This is what I saw in an article a while back, but they're apparently taking over as showrunners for all of the Sony shows that are coming down the pipeline or whatever. I don't understand how that works because like they've done a ton of animated movies, but like how do they know how TV? I don't get the connection there, but they are like good names and they produce good stuff. So like, okay, it's intriguing. But at the same time, like, what?
It's just such a weird choice, though.
But the Amazon Prime and MGM being involved does actually assure me, because I feel like if Sony was taking this on all themselves, they would find a way to screw this up somehow.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But initially, 100% in. I love this news. I'm so excited for this series.
Wild.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, man. Nicolas Cage, what a guy.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive.
We're in the Cage Renaissance.
Guys, I think I've watched over 50 Nicolas Cage movies now.
Have you watched more Nicolas Cage movies than not?
Than not. I have not,
like, at what point does that scale?
Movies in my entire life, but I've watched 50 Nicolas Cage movies.
Do you have like a list of all his movies that you've checked off, so like you know which movies you haven't seen?
I do.
Or kept track of the ones you have seen?
The only list I've been going off of is IMDb, but I've been rating, reviewing all of them on my Letterboxd profile. So if you really want to know what I think of Nicolas Cage movies, you can just check me out on Letterboxd.
What's wild is when we so to go a little off topic here, but on topic, to go into the weeds, I guess would be the better term. So when Isaac proposed to us, like who or someone in the group chat proposed to us.
Isaac didn't propose to me.
Well, this
not yet.
Yeah, who's like the modern day Nicolas Cage, and really there isn't anybody. You can find a bunch
He's the modern day Nicolas Cage.
Well, I mean, like, oh my bad, it wasn't the modern day. It was our generation's Nicolas Cage. That's what I think the question was.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
And we really can't do that because a lot of like younger guys who are actors aren't like doing what Nicolas Cage does and just does a bunch of movies. Like
every movie. Says yes to every movie.
The past 10 years, he has come out with an average of like 6 movies per year, which is insane.
That's a Gen X boomer generation type of work ethic. Right. Where you're not going to see that in the millennial and Gen Z work ethic, where they're like, no, I'm going to focus on maybe 3 movies in a span of 3 years. And that's it. Right. Where like Nicolas Cage is like, here's my yearly schedule. Just fill it up. You get a movie, they pay me $20,000, whatever. I'm there for a week. Book it. Like that's literally like it seems like his mentality.
It'll be crazy to see. I'm excited because Nicolas Cage playing an aged detective is like exactly what I want to see.
He has Spider-Man powers.
And Spider-Man, Spider-Man in there. Yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah,
that's it.
You know who's been in almost as many movies as Nicolas Cage? Danny Trejo.
Oh, he's been in more.
That dude does not say more, dude. Okay, that dude does not say no.
Julia Roberts' brother. He's been in more.
Yeah,
he's like in the most.
He's been in like hundreds.
When I went down this deep hole, that's where I saw
dude. What's his name?
Something Roberts.
Yeah, he's in Eric Roberts. I think. He's in one of the he's one of the mob bosses in the Batman movies. That's what I like recognize.
He's been in like 400 plus movies.
But he's just like, he's like an extra in every movie that he can get in, apparently.
Well, it's like the character actor where it's just like, hey, and some of these movies must pay, like, a low-level movie, I bet pays pretty decent if you're there for a week.
I'm sure.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I know. When I looked that up initially, when I started this journey, Nicolas Cage is like actually 8 or 9 on the list of like most credits, which I thought was wild because
Well, there's a lot of like pre-1950s actors on that list, right? So
yeah, right.
I
Anthony
feel like
Hopkins also
yeah.
has like
Yeah,
1,000
that
or
makes
something
sense,
like that.
actually.
Like he has a crap ton. I was trying to remember the number one guy. I didn't even know who it was, like because it was just somebody who had been in all the movies from 1950 on, basically. But yeah, it's a lot of people that are just extras, pretty much in movie. Oh, Samuel L. Jackson was on there. He was over Nick Cage. I'm trying to remember who. Danny Trejo. He said.
One of Eric Roberts' top movie credits is a movie called Ape versus Monster, and it's literally just a Godzilla versus Kong ripoff.
Dude, maybe
And
I
it
go on
looks
an Eric
so
Roberts
good.
journey next after I'm done with Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage. No, it
He's in a
would
movie.
take me like 15 years to finish that one.
He's in a movie called Planet Dune, and it is a knockoff of Dune, and it has 2 stars on IMDb.
And there's markets for that. There's money for that. Like that dude's probably still
I
making
love this. Yeah.
decent money doing that movie.
Right. Well, and with stream, and obviously streaming like kind of throws a wrench into things too, but like you get some royalties for streaming movies too.
Yeah.
So like he's probably getting like 30-cent checks in the mail every day.
This is phenomenal. This is my favorite thing. I'm on a journey, boys.
That's Jarrett's new thing. He's an
Jarrett's-
Eric Roberts fan.
We're blocking off.
Attack of the Meth Gator. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Stop the podcast. I have to go.
We gotta do a watch long.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Jarret is now leaving.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. Bye.
We gotta go watch Meth Gator
Wild.
and Madam Web.
And Madam Web. Yeah, that's definitely one he's got to catch. All right, guys. We are going to start our review of X-Men 97. We do want to do a couple things before we get to that, though. Number one is we have a special rating system that we have on the Infinity Bros podcast.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
So now that you know that, we are going to go into first a 60-second like non-spoiler review of the season of X-Men 97, and then we'll get into spoilers after that. But Mark, I'm going to start with you. What did you think of X-Men 97? And actually, if you want to add on to where you're at with the X-Men like animated series, grow up watching it, that kind of stuff, like your origin,
Yep.
and then go into like what you thought of X-Men 97 non-spoilers.
So between the Batman the Animated Series and the X-Men Animated Series, those are the 2 cartoons I pretty much grew up on. I can remember, because I'm this old, my mom would record on VHS when the X-Men shows and Batman shows were on TV. So I had a bunch of like old recordings back in the day that I rewatched. That's how you did it. So that's me watching it. Also, the fast forward, when I got an Xbox 360, the first show I ever bought via online streaming was the X-Men show. So that's my X-Men lore. My ringtone is the X-Men theme. So like that's where X-Men hits my. I literally 4 weeks ago I was up in Fargo, North Dakota at a thrift market, and I bought a bunch of the 12-inch figures that were just there. I was like, I need these. These are now
of the X-Men 97 show or the original
like the old show, the original
old
show.
one?
Like the Gambit jacket's a little tethered because it's almost 30 years old. So like,
oh, let's go. That's awesome.
It's been used. So yeah, that's my lore with X-Men growing up. Like it's been in my life, and when I saw the show was coming, I was like, it don't matter if it's bad or good. I'm gonna be watching it. I'm probably gonna love it no matter what. And then, like we said at the beginning, top of the show, got my socks rocked off. They rocked it off so hard.
So hard.
So and what's wild to me is the showrunner got fired before the season started.
That
which I'm
is
like,
wild.
I want to know more. I'm more interested in like what really all happened for him to be like, they've been like, you're out the door, and then like, give you the show, and then you're like,
that in a bit
thank
here.
You, sir.
Right. So Jarret, we're doing kind of like your origin story with X-Men animated series or X-Men in general, because you are the expert.
Yes. I didn't actually leave. It was a prank. It was a bit, guys.
And then you're like just general non-spoiler thoughts on X-Men 97.
Yeah, so when I first got into comics, I watched the X-Men series before I got into comics. and I was a huge X-Men fan. All of my first toys, I had a figure of Colossus. I had an action figure of Colossus that like is still floating around my house somewhere. It's here. He's missing part of his hands because one of my dogs chewed his hands off, but otherwise mint condition.
Otherwise, mid condition.
I've read, with the exception of obviously some of the newer stuff, I have read everything. My claim to fame used to be I read everything from John Byrne leaving forward. I have gone back and read all the John Byrne old X-Men now, but I've read basically everything up until the end of the new Krakoa stuff. So I read a lot of X-Men. This series was one of my favorites of all time, the original one. X-Men 97 brought back so many memories of my childhood. My parents were not cool and didn't record VHSs for me, so I watched the original X-Men disjointed and out of order, but enough to where like the first time I watched the Days of Future Past one, that is one of the reasons I got into reading the X-Men comics, because I was like, this is dope. I want to see Wolverine go back in time and blah blah blah. The comic is very different from the TV series, but so when they announced this, I went buck wild, and the series not only lived up to my expectations, but I've talked about this before. I am slowly dying on Disney Plus shows, and so I did not have high hopes for this series, and holy cow was I wrong. This was phenomenal. I loved it.
I'm the complete opposite of you guys. Never watched the animated series growing up. I like maybe caught an episode here and there, but like we just didn't watch TV that much. So when I did watch TV, it was the animated Spider-Man series, because that's the one that I really, really liked. So caught a little bit, and I was like, I want to try to watch the original series before this comes out. Watch the first season, and it is dated. I'm sorry if that offends some people, but I had a hard time getting through the first season. So I was like, you know what?
It's fair.
Screw this. I'm going to watch a recap on YouTube. Watched a 10-minute recap of the animated series. And then I did go back and watch some like key episodes, and I watched the finale just so like I could understand the scope of the animated series. And I do get the nostalgia that people have for it. It is a pretty cool show, especially for, we didn't have stuff like that at the time. When the animated series started coming out with like Batman, X-Men, Spider-Man
and Super Friends.
Yes. Yeah. All those things were coming out. It was like, oh, this is so cool. This is all like new. This is amazing. And yeah, it's something that was like, I mean, it's a cultural phenomenon at the time. So I understand why it is so nostalgic and epic for some people. But I came into it and I was like, all right, like, I'm going to give it a shot. Like, let's do this. And I'm also not a big X-Men guy. Not that I don't like them. I just haven't read any X-Men besides Wolverine. So I know nothing about them. But this show blew me away. It was incredible. Way, way better than I was expecting it to be. And I know you guys have already basically said the same thing. So you guys will be talking most during this review, because you guys probably have a lot more to say about it than I will.
Well, and what's to go off of like the shows itself, it's like when X-Men, the anime series, comes out, it's at a time where Marvel is really trying to make money so they don't go bankrupt.
Right.
So they're really pushing all their stuff to studios to make these shows. That was the thing with the X-Men shows. Like they really wanted it's a product of like the Batman animated series, how that got popular. Like, oh, we can do this Marvel shows. But with the X-Men series, they're like, hey, let's make it true to like how it looks like in the comics and put it on, TV and just make that work. But like Jarret said, it's not true to the comics per se, but like they did a pretty good job storytelling wise. So
there was a big emphasis too on like, especially at that time, on selling toys. Yeah. And so you can tell like there's a lot of characters that they'll switch their roles around. Like Wolverine gets put in everything.
Colossus was supposed to be one of the original members, and he got replaced with this guy who looks a little bit better with toys.
Yeah. and you got to be careful about putting like a prominent Russian character in the animated series during the 90s when we're in conflict in the Middle East. But geopolitics aside,
that's why Cajun's safe to go.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're going to get into spoilers here. So this is your official spoiler warning.
This is...
Prepare yourself.
An Infinity Bros.
Prepare yourself.
Spoiler. Warning.
make sure to pause it here and come back to it after you finish the series. And you'll want to, because it is phenomenal. All right, guys, get into it. Okay, you mentioned before. I want to talk about this first, just to get it out of the way. Mark, Bo DeMeo wrote this, executive produced this series, and got fired before it even premiered.
Yeah.
And we never got like a reason why.
No official statements from anybody about why. Like, there's been speculation he is gay and he has an OnlyFans apparently, and there's been speculation that that's maybe why. The OnlyFans part, hopefully not the gay part, because obviously that would be discrimination.
Because they basically fired Gino Gargano or whatever her name is, so like that wouldn't be the case.
Right. I don't know.
If we had an OnlyFans that was showing, pornographic stuff, that probably would be a breach of some like integrity part of his contract.
Sure.
So,
right. Yeah.
Sure.
So there's been people speculating that that's probably the reason, and he's been actually very active on social media, answering questions for people about the show. But he also has not, revealed anything either. And he also wrote season 2.
Sure, already. And maybe that's why he's not like poo-pooing Disney, because he's like, yeah, okay, what I did was technically a breach of contract, so they're right for letting me go. But
right, a very interesting situation, and it will be interesting to see if they, after this huge success of the show, if they're like, maybe this isn't such a bad thing, and go back and pull a James Gunn and bring him back.
One of the shows up for like an Academy Award or Golden Globe or something like that.
Yeah, they said I think the 5th episode was the Genosha. I think they were putting that one out for like best animated episode or something like that for the Emmys, I guess. So and oh man, that one, I don't know. I don't watch the Emmys. I don't even know what awards there are, but that episode
went hard in the paint.
Yikes, that was a crazy episode. I think that one probably could win anything that it was nominated for, because holy moly, that one was crazy.
Apparently I'm reading an article on it right now. Apparently his OnlyFans was not explicit. It was just shirtless gym pics.
It was truly an OnlyFans page, like how OnlyFans was originally
designed to
be. Like an exclusive Instagram, basically, is what OnlyFans was originally supposed to be, and then it did not become that.
Yeah. Took a wild turn.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, is it
legal? 97.
It don't matter. We're making so much money. We're making it legal.
Yeah, no kidding.
Guys, what did you like about X-Men 97 that translated from the animated series?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so I think one of the things that they've done well, and we talked about this when we talked about Daredevil, is like, they're clearly not afraid to pull punches. Like Genosha, I knew what was going to happen, but I was like, they're not going to show anything. Like, it's going to be sanitized because this is a cartoon. But they did not pull any punches with Genosha.
This was like an Invincible level cartoon. Like okay, maybe not Invincible, because Invincible gets crazy. But this was not X-Men animated series. Like, this is a show that I probably wouldn't show my kids, because there's a lot of violence and they show everything. Like, it's pretty intense.
Oh, this show.
Well, that's the thing, is I was watching this with my kids.
The generation who saw this in the 90s. That's the generation this was made for.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is like, X-Men has always been, for lack of a better term, like sort of the darker side of the comics, right? Like, they deal with some pretty heavy stuff, like genocide, racism, all this other stuff. And so you really can't soft sell it and create a good product. And so at the end of the day, that they were able to like elicit these kind of emotions from a cartoon was insanely powerful. And I think the fact that like you then take that and then translate it into how does somebody respond to this? What does it look like at the end of the day when like Magneto was right that something like this was going to happen? Like, how do you deal with the fallout of that? And I think it makes for such good storytelling that I did not expect from a Disney Plus show at all.
It was crazy. And they did also a phenomenal job with the animation, which,
right.
I mean, it looks like it is very similar to the hand-drawn animation style of the 90s series. And it almost looks like stop motion, like it is pretty choppy and very similar to the animated series, which I was very surprised that they kept that look, but it fits it so well. And I thought the animation was one of the best things about the show.
I very much felt with the animation that they were like, hey, we're going to keep kind of the designs the same, but we're going to make it look like a brand new anime. That's how I felt.
It was
Yeah,
smooth.
yeah.
Yeah.
It just looked clean, and I'm like, I'm all for this. That's what
And they had like anime-esque fight scenes too,
Yeah.
like a lot with
Yes.
Rogues specifically. Like she would be going and punching, and it would show like, you know, the big fist with like the colored background as she's going and stuff. Is like, oh
Yeah.
man, this is
Suplexing people and yeah,
Yeah.
it was dope.
wild. So how we like to talk about things on the Infinity Bros podcast is we kind of go through character by character. Obviously, there are a crap ton of characters in this, so we'll break it up a little bit differently. But there's a couple different storylines that we kind of want to go through. Number one, probably one of the main focuses in this animated series is Rogue and Gambit. We get Rogue. We actually get Lenore Zen back. She is the same voice actress from the animated series as Rogue. And then we've got AJ Locascio as Gambit for the 5 episodes that he is in. From what I understand, too. So correct me if I misspeak on any of this stuff. They kind of do have that on-off relationship in the animated series that translates into this show. And then in that final Genosha episode, obviously, Gambit kills the main bad Sentinel dude that's tearing up Genosha, gets killed, and Rogue realizes like, oh man, I was a fool for not fully committing to this guy. And he was the one that was like, yeah, I'm ready to go all in. Like, just tell me when. And we get the Rogue Magneto kind of like relationship in this series that makes it very interesting. So a lot at play here, but what did you guys think of Rogue Gambit specifically? And if you want to speak to that little side relationship with Magneto, what did you guys think?
Obviously, Gambit has kind of been like a weird rogue simp. You know what I mean? Like, the weird on again, off again with those two. And there's a big thing with, you know, sort of his envy of Magneto. And like, that's a long running theme in the comics as well. They really play up sort of the age difference here in Magneto and Rogue to like
Kinda
an
weird.
uncomfortable level.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the flashback too, like where it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
you've been like pining for, you've been grooming her, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, right. It feels very groomy.
Big P Diddy like Drake feels going on here right now.
Oh no.
And yeah, that was weird. But Rogue was pretty BA. I thought his sacrifice was super cool. And like he's always been that kind of hero that like pretends to be aloof and not care as much. And then at the end of the day, like he's always been able to put like pedal to the metal and money where his mouth is. And so his sacrifice at the end of that episode, dude, that sold it for me. That was the moment where I was like, this could win awards. Like this, it was so good.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that episode specifically, I think best episode of the season because it is
phenomenal.
And by the end of the episode, I was literally standing in my living room watching this with like my mouth open wide. I was just like, wow, they went and did that because like I don't think they would have. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they would have had the guts to do that episode in the animated series. Like it just
probably not.
It's just
they killed off so many characters. There's no way they would have done. Like that's where I like in our day and age of like pop culture and movies and TV shows, writers now know, and I think producers now know that us as an audience can take that and understand that and not be like, why would you do that? Like I think back in the 90s, even early thousands, they just thought audiences were dumb and they just wouldn't get it and it would just ruin the whole thing. Where now it's just like, hey, this is what's going to drive people to talk about this and watch it even more if we do a story like this and kill off a prominent character who got more popular because of this show.
You have to be careful because I think of like Glenn from The Walking Dead and how that was the bullet that killed Walking Dead.
Yeah,
was
well,
Glenn
yeah.
dying.
That
spoilers, I guess, for Walking Dead.
That's a little different. Whereas, like,
come on,
where we had a generation watching the show, and then the new show killed off the character. Where the Walking Dead specifically was like, hey, this show's pretty good, and here's a fan favorite, and know what? He's the one who's going to kill.
Favorite, yeah.
We're going to kill that
for no reason.
The 3 people they killed were my 3 favorite characters, and I literally stopped watching the show.
Yeah. And so like,
and I came back to it, but
I think there has to be a weight to it, right? Like you have to feel killing Gambit was a calculated move, and the way they sent him out was so perfect. Like him turning the whole giant sentinel into a bomb was such a BA
so
move.
cool.
Like,
Well,
yeah.
And we also are in a universe where probably what they're going to do in season 2 to season 3 is reset this to bring Gambit back. So like Gambit's coming back at some point. So
yeah.
No, I don't know this for sure, but I think if we have Cable in play, we have Sinister, we have the Massacre at Genosha. I think we're getting some version of M-Day. I don't think it'll be Wanda, but I think we're getting some version of M-Day, and then I think we get the Messiah Complex after that. And I think we get stuff that I think we bring people back from the dead.
we get stuff.
Through some like Messiah Complex.
We get stuff. Yeah.
We get stuff.
Absolutely.
I know we're going to jump, but like once we talk about it, like how they ended that into like the 3 prongs of the storylines, I'm like, this dude's a genius, whoever decided this. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right, the guy they fired. So, you know.
The guy they got rid of.
Yeah. But he did write season 2 already, so.
Yeah.
We already mentioned him, but Magneto was obviously a huge part of this season. Professor X gives him control of the X-Men at the beginning of this season, and wow, he plays a massive part in all of that. He also, at the end, is the contributor to the terrible thing that happens at the end, I guess. Basically gets his asteroid M up there, and stuff happens in the finale.
Yeah.
So in that, what is it? Probably the last 2 episodes, Charles comes back,
right,
and
after he was done simping.
After he's done simping,
yeah,
exactly. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. Magneto, huge character in this season. Magneto was right. What do you guys think about Magneto in this series?
I think Magneto was keeping his body in shape. I'll tell you what.
Dude was
he looks good for an old man, huh?
Because that's the whole thing. Yeah. That's why they kept it 97. So then his background is still him growing up during the Holocaust. So I think that's why they kept it in the same age versus like just revamping that show.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel like making Magneto like the front runner of the show just kind of propelled us into like a storyline. I don't think we were ready for him to be the leader and the main guy, that we tried to follow him as a good guy. So like I just always had in the back of my mind, it's like something's gonna happen, that he's gonna go back to his old ways and be destructive and then cause mass damage, which is what kind of happened, but after Genosha got wiped off. But I was all for Magneto.
I think they meant for that to happen. Like they wanted you to be distrustful of him, because that's sort of the perspective of the X-Men in that situation. Obviously, like people compare, this is a dumb comparison because this is not the way it was designed to be, but people compare Xavier to Martin Luther King and Magneto to Malcolm X, which doesn't really land. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at like a Holocaust survivor who has seen the worst of humanity and constantly tells people like, no, at some point, just to the nature of who people are, like we're going to keep coming to conflict and a lot of people are going to die because of this. And like Charles says it at the end of, I can't remember one of the episodes when he's talking to the UN person, but he's like, you're talking about a man whose worst fears about humanity are right all the time. Like, of course he's going to do the things that he does. And I think that's a cool motivating factor, because you look at it at the end of the day, I've never seen Magneto as a villain. I've seen Magneto as a victim of his circumstances, and a guy who like every time he has a glimpse of hope, because he legitimately tried to be the hero for a bit. And every time he gets hope, like the universe just snatches it away and destroys good people. And so like, truthfully, in that situation, I wouldn't be a Professor Xavier. I'm too fragile. Like if I saw good people and people I cared about being hurt over and over again, even though like everybody's like, no, you got to take the high road, I wouldn't at a certain point, right? Like if you see your people genocided over and over again, you would become the villain. I thought that was cool. I thought it was a cool way that they played his character
as a villain, as you're kind of, I think, alluding to.
Right, yeah. Because his point of view, like, you did this. You started this war. He's like, I'm just putting an end to it. Yeah, wild stuff.
Professor X comes back to save the day, and just I loved when he comes back. To be by X-Men, right? Like he comes back, the X Mansion's literally a pile of rubble and on fire, and he's like, "I hope I'm not too late." It's like, yes, you're obviously too late. You literally crashed your spaceship into a mansion that is in shambles right now.
Right.
Like, bro, like you could see that already. That was the funniest line. I love that it still kept some like cheesiness to it. Like I felt like it felt like a 90s animated show, but at the same time kind of like up the ante with the dialogue and stuff like that. But yeah, Professor X, honestly, I feel like he's my least favorite part of this season, because like the stuff on the other planet just is like, I do not care about this at all.
Yeah.
I remember in the finale, like he gets taken there basically because he will die if he does not go there. But like, what the heck was all that about? I don't get why that really had to be a part of this season.
That's one of my big gripes about this is like, you could have briefly mentioned the Shi'ar, and I think the point of it was to say like how
the show off Gladiator. That's why.
Yeah, I think the point was cool. To show how hard it is for him to like leave his X-Men. But I feel like you could have handled that. Yeah, there you go. I feel like you could have handled that way better. They spent way too much time on Shi'ar, and it was like.
And it really didn't matter in the end. Like he just went to Earth anyways.
The comic is the same thing. They spend like a ridiculous amount of issues just talking about like the climate of Shi'ar and what their marriage will, and like move on, guys. I don't know what Claremont was doing up there.
Really,
for so long.
They really wanted to make it.
In all fairness, the guys that I'm already forgetting his last name. The guy who wrote it. His thing could be like, "Hey, we're going to come."
Claremont?
Yeah,
just Claremont?
Yeah, we're going to come back, or I mean, for the show, the TV.
Oh, sure,
yeah.
The Mayo, there you go.
Whatever.
If his thought is like, "Hey, I want to make this a thing that everyone remembers, so that I can bring it back," like, "Hey, the Shi'ar are coming back," because they're like, because someone got power over Xavier's lover, so like they're coming to revenge basically. And then
there's a lot of stuff with Deathbird and the Brood, and
but I could see that.
Right. If they come back to play in season 2, then I guess it would, excuse away that episode. But it just felt like they were, like you said, Jarret, they were spending so much time there, and it was just like, in the end, it didn't really matter because
in the comic books they do that so that like there's a bit of time where because he gets basically like rebuilt from nothing. And because he's been rebuilt from nothing, he's physically able to walk. And so in the comic book, that whole section is like him mentally preparing himself to walk again. It's it's a cool commentary on like the power of the mind over the body and all this stuff. You don't get any of that. And I thought that's what they were building up to. I'm like, clearly they're spending so much time on this, and he gets his leg cut by Deathbird in that one episode. So I'm like, oh, they're going to show him walking without his power suit. No. They just like hype it up and then nothing. So yeah, I don't know. It didn't make much sense to me.
Over on what are the odds we get in the next season, Apocalypse on the current timeline versus Gladiator fight? Does it happen? I don't. Could you imagine?
I would love that.
That would be cool.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit here, but we got a few other characters that I do want to mention. Most of the other ones, those are kind of the big ones. Cyclops and Jean Grey. Those are the other ones that are like the big storyline that like we want to talk about. All the other ones, like obviously it's like X-Men. So like they had a lot of, part of the team and stuff like that. But Cyclops, Jean Grey, Cyclops got respect put on his name with this show, because I feel like a lot of people are Scott Summers haters, truthfully me included. Don't like that guy very much at all, but holy crap, like they made Cyclops cool in this series. Yeah. He had a lot of really cool fight moments in this one. And you're a Scott Summers lover, is what I'm hearing?
His weird thing with Madeline, and then him constantly cheating on Jean Grey with Emma, which hasn't happened in this yet, but like
probably will next season.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm still not spoilers for a very old comic book. But when you see him like straight up murder Charles Xavier a couple times throughout the comics, and he's like, oopsies, I'm a bad boy now. It reminds me of what's the Karma girl? Do you know what I'm talking about? JoJo Siwa. Every time Cyclops tries to be like the bad boy in the comics, I just think of like JoJo Siwa trying to be a bad, you know what I mean? That's the vibe I've always got from him. Yeah. He's like, I'm a murderer now.
I remember,
okay,
yeah.
Scott, calm down.
I just went back and read Avengers versus X-Men again, and it reminded me why I don't like him. He's such a douche. He's just a douche. But yeah, I thought he was cool in this series.
He was kind of cool in this,
And I will say though, the Madeline thing was the one part that gets me is he's literally sitting next to Jean on the couch or on the bed or something, and he's communicating with Madeline while sitting right next to Jean. Right? Like, bro, like you get why she's not gonna like that, right? And also Jean is Jean Grey. Like she's
a telepath.
She's gonna know.
But they're the same person, guys. I mean,
I love how Chili is too. He's like, I don't understand why you're upset with me. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, got a little sketchy in there for a bit, but like at the end of the day, it is really confusing situation for him. So like, I think Jean probably should have had us. I mean, she has every right to be pissed. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like, I mean, he says multiple times, like, she's the mother of my child. Like, even though I thought she was you at the time, she's my baby mama. Of my child.
It's Sinister's fault. It's Sinister's fault.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, technically, yeah, but like, dude's not helping his cause any.
No. The other kind of maybe more minor relationship that I did want to mention is Roberto DaCosta and Jubilee.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. We finally get Sunspot appearing. Jubilee, I mean, she's obviously a major part of the animated series, but she comes back and is she got to show off her powers, which was cool. Again, haven't read any comics, so I don't know how powerful she is in the comics. I always thought she was kind of a weird character. I was like, she just shoots fireworks on her hands? Like, what?
Well, they even
like,
make a joke at the last episode where it's like, "What are you gonna shoot fireworks in my face?" And she's like, "Yeah."
And then she literally did and melted half his face off. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like. Okay, that was cool. So she did get a couple moments to shine, but then they had that one episode where they kind of like were getting to know each other, and then they went what was it, Mojo World or whatever? The Mojo Motendo, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, that was kind of
seeing old woman Jubilee was very cool. I really liked that episode. Yeah,
that was awesome.
I'm a big New Mutants fan too, so seeing like Roberto and some of the nods to like Warlock, and we saw Magic at a couple points. I think Morph turns into Magic or something.
Well, that was
it was cool.
There's a theory like they go off of the New Mutants that in the modern timeline is going to be formed with like Forge, Bishop, and the New Mutants to create the new X-Men.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I've heard as a theory. So we'll see.
Another person that got a special time to shine was Storm. The original voice actor came back for her as well, and she got her own arc basically with Life Death. So she loses her powers and eventually basically has to earn them back. I don't know. Like, that was one thing that I've never read the Life Dead comics. So
Thunderbird had to give her power back, basically.
Okay,
that's not
the Thunderbird.
Jared understood that one.
Oh, stop it! I love this because I like Life Death. Forge has always been one of my favorites. He's a Montanan, which we love.
Nice.
Yeah, he's Northern Cheyenne, so he's right in my neck of the woods. I thought it was cool. I think the comic does a better job of explaining like her emotional journey and what it means for her to like be human and weak again. Her backstory is really cool. Her growing up as like an orphan thief in Cairo and like what it meant to survive in like a really hostile environment and what that means for her after losing her powers. It didn't really do it justice in the show. Like, it was a cool nod to the comics, but I think that was another one where it could have been maybe shortened and it would have still had the same impact. The guilt that Forge feels justifiably trying to shut down what he believes to be a terrorist and end up hitting a friend. I think there's like themes running through that would have been interesting, but I just feel like it maybe didn't land the plane the way it should have, but I still thought it was cool. I love that comic. So,
and when she comes back with her powers, that's a sweet scene.
That's a hardcore moment.
Like, that was really cool. Yeah, she definitely got a chance to show off.
That one does. You mentioned it, Mark, but I feel like that one did feel super anime. That fight scene with her. And like her, that was cool.
She definitely got a chance to shine. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about, though, was definitely more minor, but played a bigger part in this season than the animated series was Morph. So in the animated series, he kind of does he technically get killed off in the first
Like,
episode?
First episode, it's like he gets, as we see it as audience, he gets killed off.
Right. But then
he's
he
not.
ends up, working for Sinister, like being
Yeah.
manipulated by Sinister and stuff like that. He comes back as a full member of the X-Men,
Which he was beforehand. Yeah.
and in the
Yeah.
show capacity for sure. But he comes back and he's just so fun to watch because he can, take the appearance of.
I loved that what they did with that, where
wants.
it's like that was like they're like, here's your who's the special appearance that
Right.
Morph's gonna
We get like cameos of different characters. Like at one point, he even becomes the Hulk and is smashing
Quicksilver. Yeah, we got a lot of cool cameos.
Really cool to see him like fully involved in this season. So, but yeah, that was a really cool nod. But then we get the classic characters. George Buza comes back for Beast. Kel Dodd comes back for Wolverine, and those guys definitely got their chance to shine, but they ended up being more minor characters, which is fine because I feel like the animated series focuses on them quite a bit.
Oh,
so
yeah, the animated series is like a lot of Beast and Wolverine. I would agree with that. So that's
right.
I would say that's what I kind of liked with the show is we got more of a focus on like Rogue, Jubilee, and then Magneto is what I feel like we're like the kind of the main characters we got to really kind of follow, and that's what. And Storm. So.
I like that they didn't leave them by themselves though. Like Beast still had that like a very tiny arc with that Porter. I thought that was cool. That like nobody was kind of just left in the background. Everybody had some like even Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler has maybe 3 or 4 cameos in the entire thing. And like he still has a touching moment with Rogue as his sister. You know what I mean? Like this was well written.
And another Catholic superhero. How about that? 3
another show. There you go.
He's Jewish, isn't he?
He has a rosary that he prays with.
He's Catholic. You're right. Not Jewish.
He's like one of the most Catholic superheroes ever.
Yeah, she was even Catholic in the X2 movie. So like,
that's right. He is Catholic. He's a priest. I totally
Silly.
Like okay. So like going back to like some superheroes need to keep their religion to like kind of I think you might agree with this to kind of keep their character as what they are meaning, because like him being a mutant with everything going on and him looking not human,
like a devil,
and still having that strong of faith even in the show in some of the darker moments where you see him praying with the rosary, it's like that is character driven through his religion. And I think
the cool thing is like this is a dude who's been to hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like multiple times.
So like
yeah. You're right. That's cool.
Yeah.
I did appreciate that.
That was cool. And he got his own spot in the title card for the last like 3 or 4 episodes too. So that was pretty cool to
I think
see him.
If I had to pick a character who I thought had the best look in the animation they went with, I would say it's Nightcrawler. My opinion. If we had,
he did look
to pick a character who looked fantastic,
and he got 3 sabers, one with his tail, and 2 with his hands. That was
the
amazing.
Classic swashbuckler.
Like, that was so much fun.
I don't know if it was intentional or not, but one of my favorite things that too many writers, like a lot of people, don't know what Nightcrawler does. Like they know the teleportation. But one of my favorite things that like is rarely brought up is the fact that like he disappears in shadows is like part of his mutant ability. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there were a bunch of points where like it looked like he bled into the environment a little bit. And it looked so cool on the screen. Like his colors popped. And then with the black contrasting it, I thought it looked so cool.
That is cool. And we got that one scene where it literally, the camera followed Nightcrawler, and I think it was a Sentinel and Wolverine through his BAMF, and that was so cool because it went from like focusing on Nightcrawler then to the guy in the middle, which was like the Sentinel or the bag. I don't remember who it was. Yeah, and then to Wolverine at the end. It was just like, oh my gosh, that was they did some really fun things with the animation and the fight scenes in this one for sure.
Yeah, that was dope.
Yeah, and then we got like a ton of cameos too. A lot that we already mentioned from Morph, but we got a lot from the previous animated series. We got a couple glimpses of Spider-Man, Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger in the finale, Captain America and Iron Man a few
The Captain
times.
America actually had like lines, like actually.
Yeah,
The Captain America one was pretty cool.
And we had
Captain America
Omega Red a
robe
few
thing
times,
was-
which makes you think Omega Red's going to be a big thing in
yeah,
season 2.
yeah. And Silver Samurai, they showed him like multiple times.
Yeah, when the lights
I was
went
like-
out in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is really cool how they're like showing what is happening around the world at the same time as,
Right.
you know, like the big fight thing is happening on Asteroid M. So that was pretty cool. Seeing all those characters, and like you said, that they potentially could be, you know, brought in down
Do you
the
think
road.
they're going to bring more of those characters in season 2? Because I think that would be a really nice touch, is if they didn't just rely on just the mutant aspects of the apocalypse world, where now it's like, hey, Steve Rogers is going to come help out, Silver Samurai is going to come help out, maybe Omega Red's going to be on the good guy side, because like he's like, I don't like what Apocalypse is doing, but then we're also going to get Apocalypse's new 4 horsemen, so that'll be interesting to see who they turn out to be, unless they become the 4 horsemen that we saw in the past. So, you know, we'll see.
So that was something that I was curious on, because there was an Apocalypse arc in the animated series,
There
and
was.
there were horsemen
Yeah,
in that one, right? So like,
because Angel looks, when we see, I think we see Angel in the show, or unless it's Morph that becomes Angel, where he's Death Angel, basically.
I think
we
it was
see-
Morph. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it was
we see
Morph.
Morph.
If Angel exists in the current timeline, he's Death Angel because Apocalypse already happened, so, or had his
Right.
appearance during the timeline. So whether or not this is a new Apocalypse or old Apocalypse is back, I don't know.
Warren kind of fights back and forth with that, and so we could get either version of him.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see a new 4 horsemen. I think that'd be cool. I don't think this will happen, but I'd like to see, like, I don't think they'll pull in the Avengers and some of those other ones, but it would be cool to see like Avengerized 4 horsemen. You know what I mean?
And you can
Like,
get away
if we
with
got
that
some of those
too,
guys.
because it's not like, hey, these aren't like your Iron Man, but this is Apocalypse's Iron Man.
I want to see like Punisher as Death. You know what I mean? And like stuff like that.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
We get the the finale, and we've already kind of been mentioning it, but basically they get split into 2 different teams. One team gets sent back to 3000 BC, I think it was,
Yep.
and they meet up with Apocalypse back then.
Right.
One team gets sent into like 3000 something AD, and they apparently see Apocalypse then. No, did they see Apocalypse? No, I was thinking of the current timeline when he gets that we see the hand and the Gambit card in the hand. So like Apocalypse shows up in the present time,
Right.
Yep.
and then they
Well,
see Nate Summers as a child. That's who they see in the future.
Mhm.
So a lot of crazy stuff happens in that like 5-minute span. What do you guys think is in store for season 2?
I think we're going to get, obviously you mentioned it, I think we're going to get more Apocalypse stuff. I think we're going to get more future stuff. This might be wishful thinking. I hope we get some version of, that's ironic. I hope we get some version of like Mutant Messiah and like the Cable and Bishop story of them turning from like kind of allies to like arch enemies and then maybe back again. And I think setting up Apocalypse and Sinister as like the major evil forces of season 2 would be phenomenal. I would really love to see that.
Well, and to go off of that, because we didn't mention this, when there's what was the main villain's or the one that created all the human sentinels?
Bastion.
Bastion. When we see him talking to, what is it, Zemo, Doctor Doom, and who was that?
Yeah.
So,
A lot of villains.
So like to me, it's like, hey, if we're gonna showcase those guys, I feel like we got to have their heroes, their counterparts in season 2.
Yeah.
If you're taking out some big name players from the X-Men, so like does the Fantastic Four come into play? Does
this is really
play? Like what do we get?
Yeah,
right.
Because like
this
I feel
is
like
really
you gotta
off the
fill
wall.
the gaps, because are we gonna get like a quasi mix of like Days of Future Past and Age of Apocalypse in season 2, where because like we got the board where it's like you know who's gone, who's missing, who's off world, whatever. So it's like, what's the plan if there's not a whole team of X-Men and Genosha killed a bunch of X-Men? You got to rely on some other heroes that aren't mutants.
There's a chance. I think it's quite small, but there is a chance that we get like Axis, which was a relatively new event, and then something like the Uncanny Avengers, where like after the fallout of Genosha, the Avengers have to make a team to show like, hey, we can get along with mutants. We don't have to be at each other's throats. Because that has, I don't know if you guys ever read Uncanny X-Men, Uncanny Avengers, but it has nods to like the Four Horsemen. And there's a moment where they're sent to the future and they meet like the future versions of like what the apocalypse would look like. And I think there's maybe a chance of that just because of the Genosha fallout. I think having a mutant Avengers team would be pretty cool, but that might be a bit of a reach. And there's a huge thing where they steal, where Magneto steals not Magneto, Red Skull steals the brain of Xavier and becomes like the new version of Onslaught. That would be pretty sick.
but Xavier's in the past, right? At the time?
Yeah.
So like that's what I'm saying. Like this season 2's got to have some time travel stuff to like either bring people back from the future,
for sure,
or bring people back from the past, which then maybe plays into like, well, some of the mutants in the past might become the new
Four Horsemen.
Yeah, Four Horsemen, and that's how they wind up back in the future because they get trapped or something. Or because that's like you said, Cable and Bishop got to be main players in season 2.
Yeah,
to do all the time travel stuff. Or Forge figures out how to time travel in the meantime. Which, I mean, that's what we kind of get set up. Is like, hey, I know how you do it because you invented it. So I think that's Bishop who says it, basically. So
speaking of Cable and Bishop, we didn't really talk about them much. How do you think they were done in this season, Jarret? Because you're a big Cable guy.
I love Cable. I hated the weird green, like, goop that they made for his virus. I always loved how they did it in the old ones and like kind of the nod to Warlock and all that. But he was dope. And the relationship between Cable, his dad, and Jean has always been super interesting to me because he understands why his dad wasn't there, but also like he grew up without a dad, so he doesn't need him. And then he's always had a really cool relationship with Jean because he's like, look, I know you're not her, but also like you and I stand for the same values. And I think that's really cool to set up. I don't know, man. I thought it was really well done. I loved how they introduced him. And I think him continuing forward as like sort of the go-between between the X-Men and what would later become like the Goblin Queen would be really cool. Yeah, I'm psyched. I'm psyched to see what they do with him too.
That one scene where they like Scott and Jean were basically saying goodbye to him before they, expected to die. Really cool scene. At the same time, it's hilarious how Scott is like trying to still be a dad, even though Cable's like this giant man who's much bigger than Scott
too.
Probably older than Scott.
Wicked old,
and it's like he's still trying to father him. It's like, dude, this is a grown man.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Cable's a person who grew up without a father, so maybe he's letting that happen. So
I think it's dope too, like how he talks about it. Like Scott grew up without his dad because he thinks his dad is such a douchebag because he goes to space and then later on he's like, "Hey, sorry, I wasn't there for you, kiddo." Like, no, dude, you had the choice to come back whenever. But I think it's cool because like as much as I hate Scott Summers, he understands what that's like. And he talks about when he has to give him away as a baby. He's like, I can't put him through what I went through as a kid. Granted, like Scott's dad is a douchebag, but like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, ipso facto, Scott is also a douchebag.
I just hope Bishop, though, grows his Jerry curls back out. That's what I miss.
Yeah. Please.
I like how they're like, we're going to keep the design of most people except for him. We're going to cut his hair.
Do we get Deadpool?
Well, I heard Deadpool's off limits for this show.
Maybe. Is he? Oh, I guess he would be, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And that's why we got...
I mean, they had...
How can they do Cable, though?
Everybody, though.
How, right. Do
How can they do Cable? Because isn't that owned by Fox, too?
Well, Disney owns
Fox. How does that work?
Now. Disney owns Fox. I'm sure... I think Deadpool's off limits because he's in the movie. Like, that's where that aspect is. And that's why Spider-Man doesn't have lines. So, like, legally, they can show Spider-Man for under 20 seconds if he doesn't have lines. Just like...
But who owns Cable?
Disney does.
Disney.
Does he?
Yeah.
Because
Disney bought they bought all the Fox properties.
Disney bought Fox, yeah. So they have all the Fox properties.
That's confusing.
I think we could still see Deadpool. This Spider-Man aspect is interesting with all the crap that Sony
literally
has.
Sony can just be like, all right, just give us some schmeckles and we'll make this work. Like literally, that's all it takes.
Give us some schmeckles. Yeah. Gosh, if they make a Spider-Man 98.
I hope we get a Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
In all fairness, like I think because they're in a different realm when it comes to animation, that would be more possible than like how it's more difficult in the film realm. So
And you can tie it in because you already have Bobby Drake as Iceman, and yeah, I think there's a lot you could do.
So that's what I've heard too. It's like in the rumor where like, well, who leads the new X-Men if like all the main leaders are gone? And it's like, well, some people have said Bishop or Forge, but other ones have said Iceman comes back or Emma Frost takes over, and then we get like the
Emma Frost would be interesting.
What was her thing?
We did have that Emma Frost appearance in before the Genosha episode,
and her figuring out how to use her ice or crystal powers for the first time,
because they say they could bring back the Brotherhood. That's what they're saying.
Oh,
and then this is the lineup for what they thought. This specific theory thought the new Apocalypse Horseman would be Angel, Gambit, Polaris, and Wolverine. So I don't know how he pulled.
That makes sense.
So yeah, so we could see that as a possibility. But I guarantee with them showing Wanda a few times.
Did we see Polaris? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing her.
But
we did see Quicksilver, so we know the siblings are out there.
And they showed Wanda as off-world on that, on like the faces. So like that's just a nod where it's like she's got to be showing up next season.
They had a lot of really cool nods and Easter eggs in this show.
I hope we get M-Day.
Like,
I hope we get M-Day just
payoffs.
because I want to see Hope.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens season 2. And we'll see what happens if Disney chooses to bring back Beau DeMayo, because this show was a massive hit. It's rated 9 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty dang solid. And I think I heard that it was like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. So like everybody loves the show. Critics, audience.
If you're listening to this and you've never read a comic book, there's no better time than now to be an X-Men fan. The Krakoa arc and all the like House of X, Powers of X requires a little bit of background, but honestly not too much. And if you're like, man, I dig the retro vibes of 97 and I want to go back and read like OG comics, go pick up a copy of the original like Dark Phoenix saga, or even what's the one with Kelly? Oh, God Loves Man Kills. Pick up that arc because it's phenomenal.
And what's great about all those is they're all in the why am I blanking? Like where it's all the issues
Unlimited.
The
collected editions.
Yeah, there you go. Like most of them are in that. So like you don't even have to go buy them individually. You can most likely buy the whole series or the whole run in for like $20. So
yeah.
When I was at Barnes and Noble, because I went to Barnes and Noble a couple weeks ago, they had God Loves Man Kills for like $20.
Yeah,
or less. Yeah.
So we're in a world where that's very accessible if you want to go deep diving into that stuff.
All right, guys. Moment of truth. What would you rate X-Men 97? Jarret?
7.5 out of 6. 6 out of 6. It's phenomenal.
Mark?
Just to be this guy, 6.11 out of 6.
Oh, okay. I was like, if you say 3, I'm going to screech across the screen.
No, I'm giving it a 6 as well, because holy crap, this show blew me away. Was not expecting the level of high tier television that we got.
Dude, it was phenomenal.
6 out of 6. Infinity Snap from the Infinity Bros.
Let's go.
On X-Men 97. Big things happening here. Any other minor thoughts before we close out the show? We've been talking for a long time because this show is worth it. This show is worth talking about for sure.
Not directly X-Men related, but I do want to talk about, just real quick before we close out, there is kind of a Fallout renaissance going on. And if you still haven't played these games or watched the show is really good. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody because it is like, I don't know. I feel like it is like a specific audience, but the games are phenomenal. Go check them out. I think if you're not on Patreon, we talked about that a bit before the show. Fallout is great. Just like try it out. They're pretty cheap right now.
I think we're all back playing it because like I'm playing 4 again.
Same. I'm playing 4 and 76 again.
And it was like a month ago.
Check out the Patreon for exclusive access to the Infinity Bros Patreon, unedited episodes, and a little bit extra. Definitely go check that out. All of this will be in the show notes. Mark and Jarret, thanks guys for joining me. It's been a blast tonight.
Yeah, always my pleasure.
Yep, always no. It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
No. It's mine. No. It's my pleasure.
Okay.
Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, thank you so much for listening to the Infinity Bros podcast. We love you 3000. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at the Infinity Bros. You can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and sweet merch. Feel free to send listener feedback via social media or email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.